Good morning, everyone. Hello, it's Mrs. Lee here. Today I'm in the hall. Sounds a bit echoey, doesn't it? Who's behind me? Can you see? That's right, it's Wriggles. Say hello, Wriggles. Oh, look at Wriggles' face. Do you think he looks happy? I think he is. He's got his good listening ears on. Have you got your good listening ears? Good. Right. Can you remember what we were talking about last week? That's right. We were thinking about the British values, weren't we? I was just going to show you our poster to remind you. How many British values are there? Can you show them on your fingers? That's right. There are 5 British values. And we've talked so far about 4 of them. Shall I remind you? We have talked about democracy. Do you remember? We voted for Wriggles' name. Then we thought about, can you remember? Just reminding myself, the rule of law. We talked about the golden rules, didn't we? Do you remember there was somebody a little bit cheeky, wasn't there, in one of our stories? Mr. Creep the Crook. And then we talked about individual liberty, and I talked to you about Emmeline Pankhurst, didn't I? And I said that she had an idea, and that's okay to have an idea and be a little bit different, isn't it? And she decided that she wanted to persevere. And I think on Friday in our shout-out assembly, we talked about a boy who grew his hair. He did, didn't he? That's right. And then we talked about mutual respect. Can you remember the story about mutual respect, about those 2 monsters? They were a bit naughty, weren't they? Today we're going to talk about this. Now watch very carefully. I don't know if you can read that. It's quite tricky. So Mrs. Lee's going to read it to you. We're going to talk about tolerance today. Tolerance of those of different faiths and beliefs. Now Mrs. Lee's got a bit of a problem with the word tolerance, all right? I don't like that word very much. I think we should really be saying something like understanding, all right? Understanding that you and me and everybody else might have different faiths. Ooh, do you remember our RE theme days? Do you remember when at the end of term, so probably about now, we would be saying no phonics, no maths, no maths gym, oh, Mrs. Smith, close your ears. And we would just be thinking about different religions. Now, I don't know if you at home are religious. You might be. Maybe you go to church. Can you give me a thumbs up if you do? Okay. Now, you might not go to the same church as each other. Some of you might go to a place of worship that's called a different name, maybe a mosque. Can you put your thumbs up if you go to a mosque? Or maybe your grown-ups do. Are they the same? No, not really. They mean the same sort of thing as where it's a place where you would go to worship. Maybe it's a place where you go to gather, to be together. I'm going to read you a story in a moment, and it's going to talk about this British value. But I want you to change the word of tolerance. I want you to change it to the word understand. Okay? To understand that some people might be a little bit, who can think of the word? Yeah, different. Is lion, Mrs. Lee. Wriggles, is Wriggles the same as Mrs. Lee? No, we're similar, got lots of hair. He's got 4 legs. I haven't. He looks a little bit glum. I'm not. He might have different ideas to me. Is that okay? Well, it's all right as long as he's not going to do anything naughty and break the golden rules. He might believe in God. He might not believe in God. Everyone's different. So, are you ready for my story? My story will hopefully help you to understand what we mean by this British value. So I need your good listening ears. Okay. My story is called Making Friends, and it's about a little girl called Emily who learns about, it does say on my book, tolerance, but maybe we should say the word understanding. Right, are you ready? Making friends. Emily was lonely. Her big brother was always too busy to play with her. I wonder if that happens in your house. Then, one day, a girl called Amira moved into the house next door. It's a pretty name, isn't it, Amira? Emily looked out of the window and she saw Amira climbing up a tree in her garden. "Ooh," said Mum, "you could make friends with Amira." Emily frowned. She wasn't sure about this. There's Amira up at the tree. There's Emily with her frown. It's okay to feel a little bit strange when you meet somebody new. That's okay, isn't it? Later that afternoon, Amira's dad and brother went out together. Amira said goodbye to them in a language that Emily didn't understand. Now, we're quite good at different languages, aren't we? We've been doing Language of the Month. And we know that some people hear different sounds and different words and speak different ways at home, don't they? "Well," said Emily's mum, "it's Friday and they're going to the mosque to pray." Emily frowned. She wasn't sure about this. Emily saw Amira's big sister come home from work and she was wearing a hijab. Oh, sorry. Now the hijab is this. It's a scarf that covers the lady's head, covers her hair. Amira and her family are Muslims, Mum said. That's the way they dress. They dress to show what they believe. Emily frowned. She wasn't sure about this. We've been coming to school in our bubbles and we've all been wearing different things, haven't we? Some of you have had bows in your hair. Some of you have had caps on. Some of you have worn dresses. All different, isn't it? The next day, Emily was feeling lonely again. "Why don't you play with Amira?" said Mum. "Oh, we can't be friends," Emily said. "We're too different. We've got nothing in common." Do you agree or disagree? Emily went outside to play with her dog. "Fetch!" she said, throwing the ball. The ball flew over the fence and landed in Amira's garden. "You'll have to go back over there, won't you? You'll have to go next door," said Mum, "and get it back." Emily frowned. She wasn't sure about this. Mum laughed and grabbed her keys. "Come on, I'll come with you," she said. So Emily knocked on Amira's front door. Please may I get my ball back?" she asked. And Amira invited Emily and her mum to come in. Emily followed Amira into the garden and they looked for the lost ball everywhere. "Found it," said Amira, and she threw the ball to Emily. And the two girls began to play while their mums had a cup of tea. It got cold, so Emily and Amira went indoors and the afternoon sped by and soon Emily had to go home. "Can we play again tomorrow?" Emily asked. "Yes, please," Amira said. As she left, Emily smiled at Amira. "Your family's different to mine," she said. And your family's different to mine, said Amira. But both knew it didn't matter. They still could be friends. Emily gave her new friend a hug. I won't be lonely anymore, she said. Emily and Amira were sure about one thing. They were going to have so much fun together. There you go, it's the end of the story. Do Emily and Amira look like each other? Do they live near each other? Do they like doing the same things? They definitely like playing ball together, and they like doing that jigsaw together. They might have had different other hobbies though, mightn't they? So when we go and meet new friends, and some of you are going to make new friends soon, because you'll be going up to the junior school if you're in year 2, and you'll make friends with all the year 4s and 5s, and the 6s maybe as well. Some of them you'll remember, some of them you won't remember at all, because it's such a long time ago since they left our school. And will they look like you? Maybe. Maybe they'll be a bit different. Maybe some of them will like football. Maybe some of them will like Pokemon. Who knows? Are we going to be scared of them? No. We might be a little bit wary to start off with, like Emily. We might be thinking, oh, I don't know if they're that friendly. What can we do to make other people know that we're friendly? Can you think of anything? We could smile, can't we? Smiling's a really good way of showing other people that you are friendly and maybe that you want to be friends. Right. I'm really pleased that Emily changed her mind. I know she was a bit funny at the beginning, wasn't she? Thinking, that looks a bit different. It's okay to feel a bit like that. But once we understand that other people have different ideas and different beliefs to maybe you or me. I bet you I've got different ideas to some of your grown-ups and different beliefs to some of your grown-ups. But do you know what? I still like your grown-ups. Okay. Right. So, I want you to think about the British values that we've been talking about over the last 2 weeks. Hopefully they can help you. Right, shall we finish off with one thing that can help us? I'm going to bring Wriggles over. We're going to say it together. Help me to do the things I should, to be to others kind and good, in all my work and all my play, to grow more loving every day. Amen. All right. Maybe in your bubbles, maybe try and find somebody in your bubble that you haven't spoken to yet. Maybe try and make friends with them. Find out the things that you like that are the same, and maybe try to understand the things that are different about you. Maybe you could do that at home as well. Right. I will see you in one sleep's time. What I'm hoping for this week, and I've already got one already, is some final shout-outs. So if you've done something at home over the weekend, all right, and maybe you can't put it on Tapestry anymore because Tapestry's closed down for your grown-ups, you can email those to me, all right, and I would love to put them in the last shout-out assembly. All right, take care. See you tomorrow. Bye.